So welcome back, and this is the second video of a series going step by step into the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. So hopefully if you watch the first video, you'll know if you're E for extrovert or I for introvert. So that's the first of four dichotomies that will give you four letters, which will give you your Myers-Briggs type. But also what we're going to look into in the future is the cognitive functions that each of those types actually use. So the four letters are like a code. So today we're looking at the second letter, which is whether you're an S for sensing or sensor, or an N for an intuitive or intuiting. So I know intuition starts with I, but not to have two I's in the code. It's written as N. And essentially this second function is called the perceiving function. It's what your type tune into when they look at the world. It's like a filter. And so let's have a look at what each type are perceiving. Let's start with the basics. The S types are known to be words like more down to earth, because it's to do with the senses, what you can sense with your senses, what you can understand through the facts, what's really happening around you kind of in the now. And so they're generally known of being like more concrete, more practical, more patient with the physical world and with details, more interested in what's going on here and now in the world, mastering the physical world. Whereas the N types are known to be a lot more interested in concepts, in the abstract, in the unseen, in what will be. So intuition actually is not just picking up like what does your gut feel. It's intuition in a sense of pattern recognition. And so N types are always looking at the kind of the bigger picture, the pattern, the meaning of things that are happening, and not so interested in the detail. Whereas the S types often could be accused of not seeing the forest for the trees. They're much more focused on the here and now, and maybe sometimes might miss the picture, the bigger picture. They tend to also trust more traditional authority. They trust knowledge that's been tried and tested. They trust sort of traditional qualifications. And what S often does is it really works on examining what is and improving it sort of step by observation. The N type, however, is very much in the future, very future oriented. So often they're accused of wanting to reinvent the wheel. They love novelty. They love new ways of doing things, even just for the sake of it. So it's a little bit like the difference too between the divergent brain. So they're often brainstormers, kind of linking patterns. Now, how I've seen this kind of manifesting is that so I'm an N type, so I love the world of ideas and concepts. They don't even have to be at all practical. So when N types get together, they'll often have very random topics about things that you have no proof of. So they'll be like, do aliens really exist? And what about this conspiracy theory? And of course, to the S types, it just looks like a load of baloney. They're often accused, the N types, of being kind of off the planet, not grounded in reality. But it's so good to know how the different types works and be able to respect the specialty of each type, but also acknowledge the weakness of each type. And actually, just like the extroverts and introverted part of us, we need to kind of develop over time, so that if we're extrovert, we need to become more introspective. And if we're introspective, we often learn to have the confidence to put ourselves out there. And so it's similar with the S and the N. So if we're an N type, we love looking at the bigger picture and often extrapolating from a few facts what might happen, a lot of guesswork. But often this skill is really honed to the point where N's do read between the lines. They do see what's kind of going on behind the scenes. And they can often be like bang on and way ahead of the masses in working out sort of where things are going or what is the big picture. However, we always tend to over trust our dominant cognitive ability. So sometimes the N type, without really checking the facts, will believe in every conspiracy theory because somehow it fits in with their model and they don't have the patience to necessarily verify or get into the facts. And also what's really frustrating for the N types is that sometimes we can't see clearly what's going on. And it's not that we've just made it up. We've collected a lot of data points, which is what the S does. So we all have, if you're an N, you will have an S, and you'll use that to collect data points. And then using that, you'll build the bigger picture. But sometimes the S types will then turn around and say, well, where's your research? Who wrote that paper? Show me the evidence. And no way is the N type, collecting it all in somewhere to prove it to you. They're only interested in really their theory or their bigger picture. And so when they get together, it's like they speak the same language and they feel more relaxed. They don't have to necessarily prove themselves to the S, because often they just enjoy these very random, interesting, off-the-planet types of abstract conversations. So N-type definitely love the world of the abstract, of the meaning of things, of concepts, of futuristic thinking, where are things going. Now, the S-types, on the other hand, can really get into the facts, the evidence, the proof, and then so much so that sometimes they don't have my accusation for the S-type is sometimes they lack imagination. Now, everybody has imagination. Sometimes the N are over-imaginative, but sometimes the S-type is so practical, so down to earth, that they can't imagine how the quantum level might work or how miracles can happen and how that's... So for the N-type, they kind of live in that abstract world of coincidence and meaning and kind of pattern recognition. Whereas the S-type are often just mastering their, distinct abilities of practical kind of abilities. Now, I found a really interesting or funny meme. Sometimes the N-types, because they're so into philosophy and kind of abstract thinking, that they somehow think that that's, makes them closer to God. It's more of the invisible world. And so they might, put themselves up on a pedestal because of that reason. But from the S perspective, and I think there's some truth in this, sometimes the N can look very unpractical, very ungrounded, and not even able to they're imagining changing the world, but they can't even make their own beds. And so, the S-type will sort of bring them down to earth and say, well, actually, you think you're so great, but you're only surviving because the S-types are looking after the world, so you can go off and daydream. So daydreaming is another indicator, especially when you're young, and that's often before we've developed our other kind of functions, that the N-type will be known for being daydreamers, loving fiction, loving fantasy books, loving to daydream about the future, where the S-type may be working on some practical project or honing some practical skill. And because of this kind of patience with the physical world, the S often do end up in careers that require that sort of expertise, surgeons and doctors and lawyers, or people who need to have a lot of details, be very grounded in the world and very kind of concerned about dealing with the here and now. N-types often make great visionaries. They can often see trends. I think they're very good in jobs which require a lot of like theory or teaching or abstract thinking, understanding where maybe bigger trends are going, maybe advertising, sort of connecting with the zeitgeist, maybe creating the new zeitgeist. There's a lot less N in the world population, which is also kind of interesting because, you know, to keep the world ticking along, you don't want everybody daydreaming and thinking about the future. You want a larger amount of people looking after the here and now and kind of getting things done and learning to master the world of the senses that we live in. And yet both can really benefit from the opposite perspective. The N-type sometimes need to verify their hunches, and the S-type sometimes need to use their imagination and be a little bit open to your crazy N-type cousin or brother, you know, who may not have their whole life together, but often because they really live in the world of pattern recognition, they often do see what's going on where the world's going, or what are the trends, or what sort of the direction things are moving in. So I hope that's clear. Again, if it's not, and sometimes we get confused because we all do both. We all have both in our configuration. It's a matter of which is your natural world that you tend to go into. And when you get together with friends, are you more comfortable talking about abstract, interesting ideas, kind of zany, off the world theories? Or do you keep your discussion to people and things and events and kind of what's happening and how to do things and real life in the moment? So yeah, if you're not sure, take your best guess, and hopefully as we continue, we'll fill in the gaps and try and get down to your actual type. But yes, that's a little bit about the N and the S type. See you in the next video, and we're going to look at thinking versus feeling and how we make decisions. So stay tuned. Hope to see you in the next video. Bye for now.